see.
And she writes for so many different companies, including Vogue and GQ and just loads and loads of different journalism and fashion. She studied in America and then at SOAS in London for her master's in Islamic studies, actually.
Amazing.
And she was just approached, I think around the pandemic time or just before, to write this book about modest fashion. So yeah, that's how it came about.
That's amazing.
She's always been interested in talking about the topic.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Archna Sharma.
Sharma.
Yeah.
And you are the publisher.
I am the
And how many
publisher.
books have you published before?
We've published, we've got 20 backlists so far, but we're going to be doing 11 new ones this year, 16 next year, so we're growing really fast. And we've just got to our first office, so we're very excited. So instead of working from my dining table, we now actually have an office, which is great.
That's lovely. That's
yeah.
lovely. Tell me a little bit more about our book today. I want to know the name, Modesty.
So, as Hafsa mentioned, I actually commissioned the book because I'd met her already in Dubai when we were living in Dubai, and I saw it as a retail category that was really interesting, that was growing. And for me, though, it was, and I had a lot of friends who were partaking of modest fashion. But for me, it's this notion of a lot of the conversations that were covered, the notion of extreme wealth with fashion, or very much promoting self as opposed to stepping back and blending in. And so there were all of these things. And so the question was, well, why now? Why is it rising now? And I guess the press, as a Neem Free Press, we want to look at industries that have a huge amount of money that is growing very fast. And modest fashion was clearly, one of those. And so that's when I met with Hafsa, and she didn't talk about it. She was pregnant at the time, so she worked really fast because the book had to be done before the baby came out. So it was really interesting, and and she's working on a second book now, actually, but that's fiction. But in a roundabout way, she's bringing in some of the modest fashion stuff even into the fictions.
That's amazing. And would you say you're covering the modest fashion in America, the UK, or globally?
Globally. Globally. I mean, we keep debating whether we should do a second edition and add other things that we didn't in the first one. We're still thinking about it. But yes, globally.
Is there tips in the book about how do we dress modesty as well? Or is it a different perspective? Is there more to it?
So the book discusses notions of modesty from, most of it is obviously dealing with Islam, but you're also looking at Judaism and Christianity, but each of those has slightly different notions of modesty. So that for me was very interesting. So in Orthodox Judaism, you don't really wear red because that's very much out there. Whereas in Islam, you can wear red. It's okay. It's there's nothing that says for Mormons, you don't ape a man, so you don't wear trousers, right? You can wear a dress. Whereas in Islam, there are many women with modest fashion. We're wearing, we're wearing trouser suits, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So it's that is really interesting, and of course also to look at the historical aspects of it. So even in Muslim countries, you look at Turkey, for example. Turkey has contributed hugely to the modest fashion industry, but Ataturk, etc., with pre the current leader, was if you wore a hijab, you couldn't be in parliament, etc. If you look at even Saudi, if you look at Iran, and you see how it's changed in the day of the Shah, and so there's notions of cultural modesty have changed with politics, right? Obviously, religiously, each of those faiths would say, and even if you go outside of the monotheistic faiths and you go to Buddhism or Hinduism or whatever, every faith has notions of modesty, actually. And if you look at traditional Asian dress, there's normally you put a head covering around it. So I think it's part and parcel of culture, but it's really interesting to, we get very fixed on the here and now, but actually if you step back and you look at, human evolution over time, you see that, we have our issues now, but actually other societies, be they Muslim or not, have gone through this, Victorian England and, all of those. So, and then actually one thing that, sorry, I'm talking a lot, but one thing that didn't come up that we had talked about that's in the book is the Me Too movement. Okay. So I think the Me Too movement has had an impact on the film industry and how women relate to that and what was expected of them to what is now expected of them. So many women of whatever background are now much more confident to say, I'm not going to strip off in the scene. I am not going to, I have other acting abilities. I don't need to do this. And I think the other thing that was brought up is, I think what has really upset me actually recently, I sat back and I thought, okay, this is 2023. Even in 2023 UK, it doesn't matter what you're wearing. And in fact, the book starts off that you can be wearing, there's a young woman who was wearing chador. Right? So we have to also take away this notion of, oh, well, I'm safer because yes, to a certain extent you are. But it was very interesting. Maria, we met Maria Idrisi, who's a cover girl, and Hafsa in Dubai after Emirates Fest. So Maria was dressed beautifully, very modest, but exquisite, as she always is.
Yes.
The taxi driver, so this is this is Dubai. The guy was a Muslim.
Yeah.
He asks for her number and tries to chat her up.
I wanted to ask you about your next book.
Okay. Well, it is
Gonna go to video, so.
okay. It's a fiction book, inshallah, releasing 2025, and it's about a young modern Muslim woman living in the West and then in the East, and coming of age and finding her purpose, and then losing her purpose, and then trying to find it again. I guess that works as well.
I think, we're still editing.
Yeah, still clearly lots of edits coming.
We know how long editing takes. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think about modesty and men? Why are men not questioned as much about modesty? And, for example, they can wear, their knees can be shown, and the community wants to be asked. Is that something that you also mentioned in the book?
Yes, it's explored in the book a bit, modesty and men. They definitely, in the Quran, modesty is encouraged on both men and women. Women have just become kind of the symbol of, women have been easier to control historically under patriarchal cultures and governments, but modesty is equally incumbent on men.
Would you say your upbringing have affected what modesty means to you, where you are?
I think my parents instilled modesty in me at a very young age in a very healthy way, and because of that, I haven't felt like I need to reject modesty at all. In fact, I've embraced it more as a
What would your role be with your kids? I know you were pregnant when you published the book, right? Yes, there you go.
That is a tough one. I'm still working on that. I want to obviously instill modesty and these Islamic ethics in my children without coming across forceful or controlling. And I will have to figure out a balance.
Indeed. Thank you so much, and thank you for coming down to Rumi's today.